All right, let's dive into Phantom Islands. These are land masses, once on maps, but later, well, they just weren't there anymore. And we've got a ton of sources, historical accounts, studies, even old maps. Should be interesting.
The really cool thing about Phantom Islands is it's not like someone just made them up.
Yeah.
There were usually a few things that caused them. Navigational errors, people seeing things wrong, myths, and even just like natural stuff happening.
And I always wondered about that. Like, how could experienced explorers, even with all their instruments and knowledge back then, get so off track?
It's complicated, you know?
Yeah.
Early navigation had its limits. Then you've got the impact of beliefs and legends, and of course the ocean itself. Vast and powerful.
Let's start with those myths and legends.
Okay.
Like Hy-Brasil, off the coast of Ireland. Supposedly, it appeared only one day every 7 years. Sounds like something out of a fantasy book.
Hy-Brasil is a perfect example of how a phantom island can capture our imaginations for centuries. It's part of that whole tradition of mythical islands, like Atlantis, places that represent our desire for lost civilizations or hidden paradises.
And it wasn't just ancient times. What about the Isle of Demons,
Right.
supposedly near Newfoundland? That one showed up on maps way into the age of exploration.
The Isle of Demons shows how powerful fear and superstition were, especially for sailors in unfamiliar waters.
Right.
Anything weird, strange events, creatures, even storms. It all got blamed on supernatural stuff. And those fears often ended up on maps as, like, dangerous islands.
So we've got mythical islands driven by imagination, fear. But then there are those phantom islands just from plain old mistakes, like thinking a peninsula was an island.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Early map makers often didn't have all the info. They relied on secondhand stories or quick observations. The Baja California Peninsula, for example, was shown as an island for a long time, simply because explorers hadn't fully mapped its connection to the mainland.
Makes you wonder how many other things were wrong on those early maps. Was it always just a lack of information, or were there times people messed with the maps on purpose?
Well, there were definitely cases of, let's call it cartographic mischief, driven by politics or money.
Oh, yeah.
But even with good intentions, mistakes happened. You got to remember, maps were super valuable back then.
Right.
Their accuracy could determine whether explorers and traders succeeded or failed.
Speaking of mistakes, I've always been fascinated by Isle Felipeau and Lake Superior. This island didn't exist,
Right.
but it somehow became a border marker between the U.S. and Canada. What a cartographic mess-up with real consequences.
Isle Felipeau is the perfect example of how a phantom island can take on a life of its own, even though it wasn't real.
Yeah.
It influenced boundaries and decisions. It shows how much we trust maps, sometimes even when there's evidence saying they might be wrong.
It reminds us that maps are interpretations of reality. They're not always accurate reflections. And sometimes those interpretations are way off, especially with all the tricks nature can pull.
Totally.
Yeah.
Nature is responsible for a surprising number of phantom islands. Think about icebergs, those massive things.
Right.
Or giant fog banks hiding coastlines, or even pumice rafts from underwater volcanoes. Those could easily be mistaken for islands, especially in tough conditions.
Like New South Greenland, right?
Yeah.
Spotted in 1823, never seen again. It's thought to have been a superior mirage. Pretty amazing.
Superior mirages happen when light bends through air layers at different temperatures. It makes things on the horizon look higher and closer. They're common in polar regions with extreme temperature differences.
So even experienced explorers used to those harsh conditions could get tricked by how the light played on their eyes. It makes you realize how easy it is for our senses to be fooled, even in familiar places.
Definitely. And it wasn't just in the polar regions. Sailors in warmer areas saw islers that shimmered and then vanished, probably heat haze or some kind of atmospheric distortion.
Really shows how powerful nature is, creating these illusions, and how we're susceptible to misinterpreting what we see. But there's another kind of phantom island that I find really interesting. The ones that might have existed at some point, but then, well, the sea swallowed them up.
Now, those bring in a sense of real loss, the idea of whole land masses, maybe even with people on them, vanishing beneath the waves. It speaks to how dynamic our planet is and the forces that constantly reshape it.
Like Sandy Island, which was on maps for over 100 years.
Wow.
Then in 2012, they said, nope, it's not there. They think it was a pumice raft mistaken for an island. But it makes you wonder what other islands might be based on similar mix-ups.
Sandy Island shows us that our knowledge of geography is always changing.
Yeah.
Even with today's technology, we're still finding new things and correcting old errors. It's a good reminder that what we know about the world is never truly complete.
What about those islands that might have been real but got wiped out by volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, or those underwater landslides? Those events can change coastlines in an instant, leaving barely a trace.
It's a sobering thought. The fact that even land masses we think are permanent can be so vulnerable to nature's power. It makes you wonder about lost ecosystems, maybe settlements, and the secrets hidden under the sea.
So we've got phantom islands from myths, mistakes, natural illusions, and even the Earth itself changing. Now I want to dig into some specific examples, starting with one that involves a deliberate trick. Crockerland.
Yes, Crockerland. This one reveals a darker side of exploration, where ambition and the desire for fame led to a straight-up lie. Robert E. Peary, a famous Arctic explorer, claimed he found this massive landmass in 1906.
But it was a total fake. Peary made up Crockerland, even named it after a rich guy who supported him just to get more money for expeditions.
Why would he go so far? Was he just greedy, or was there more to it?
Hard to say for sure.
Peary was in a very competitive world. Explorers were all competing for recognition and funding. The pressure to find amazing things, to push the limits of what humans could do, was enormous.
I guess in that situation, a phantom island, especially one as big and promising as Crockerland, could have seemed like the answer to his problems. But the consequences of his lie were huge, right?
Absolutely. Peary's hoax not only hurt his reputation, but made people doubt other Arctic explorations. It showed how important it is to verify things independently and to be skeptical even when dealing with famous people.
It's a reminder that the search for knowledge, even in exploration, can have ethical problems. And sometimes the most exciting stories are, well, too good to be true.
And speaking of unbelievable stories, let's jump to the opposite end of the Phantom Island timeline. Sandy Island. This one appeared on maps for a crazy long time, from 1774 to 2012.
It's amazing how Sandy Island lasted so long, even though many expeditions couldn't find it.
Right.
It shows how information can just keep going, even when it's wrong. How hard it is to fix mistakes once they're established. And maybe even a reluctance to let go of a good story.
It's like a phantom limb on the map.
Yeah.
You know it shouldn't be there, but it keeps popping up.
Mhm.
Most likely it was a pumice raft mistaken for an island, but there's still folks who think maybe it was a submerged island or some other unexplained thing.
The mystery of Sandy Island reminds us that even today, with all our technology, the ocean still has secrets.
It does.
And sometimes, the most interesting discoveries are the ones that make us rethink what we thought we knew.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder, are there other phantom islands hiding on our maps, waiting to be proven wrong, or maybe even right? The exploration goes on.
All right, from a made-up island in the Arctic to a long-lasting phantom in the Coral Sea, we've covered a lot. Let's move on to a different kind of phantom island, one that shows how our understanding of geography has evolved over time. The Isle of California.
So the Isle of California, for a long time, people didn't think it was a peninsula. They thought it was this huge island, separated from the mainland by a strait. Can you imagine?
Wow, a whole landmass miscategorized for centuries. What caused such a big mistake?
Well, a few things. Early explorers, they didn't have the best tools or maps.
Right.
So accurately charting that vast coastline was tough. Plus, there were theories back then that insisted California had to be an island. It was all based on misunderstandings about ocean currents and how continents were formed.
So limited technology, incomplete data, and maybe a bit of seeing what they wanted to see.
Exactly.
It shows that even scientific theories can be swayed by popular assumptions. And this wasn't just about California, was it?
Oh no, not at all. Phantom islands, whether from myths or mistakes, they've had a big impact on us. They show up in literature, folklore, they even shape how we see history.
It's amazing how these places that don't exist have captured people's imagination. You see them everywhere. Adventure stories, even pirate tales.
Yeah.
It's like they represent something really captivating about the unknown.
Exactly. Think about Jules Verne's book, The Mysterious Island.
Oh, yeah?
Castaways end up on a volcanic island that seemingly just popped up out of nowhere. It plays on that fascination we have with the unexpected, with those uncharted parts of the world.
And Treasure Island. The whole story relies on a map leading to buried pirate treasure on this remote island, which might not even be real.
Right. That idea of hidden riches, the excitement of the search, it's a classic theme that never gets old.
The Treasure Island idea perfectly captures that desire for adventure, for getting away from the ordinary and heading into the unknown. And Phantom Islands, with their mystery and elusiveness, they're the perfect setting for those stories of risk and reward.
They are.
But it's not just about adventure and treasure, right? Phantom Islands also played a role in shaping our understanding of history and geography. They sparked so many expeditions, fueled scientific debates. Even if they were based on wrong information, they encouraged exploration and pushed the boundaries of knowledge.
Absolutely. Like the Zeno map from the 16th century, it shows several phantom islands, including this mythical place called Frisland in the North Atlantic. It's a snapshot of what people knew about geography back then. It shows how much they wanted to explore, but also how little information they had.
It reminds us that our understanding of the world is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It's built on accurate observations and, well, mistakes. Just the fact that a map like that exists tells a story about the tools they used, their theories, and the challenges those early map makers faced.
And it shows how misinformation can spread, especially before printing was widespread and maps weren't standardized. Once a phantom island was on a map, it could get copied for centuries. It would take on a life of its own and shape how people saw the world.
We've talked about myths, mistakes,
Mm.
but there were also those times when phantom islands were made up on purpose
Yeah.
for personal gain or to manipulate political situations. There's a kind of darker side to these made-up places on maps, isn't there?
There is. Crockerland, which we talked about, is a prime example. Robert Peary created that Arctic island for funding and fame. It shows how far people might go for recognition, even resorting to lies.
And it wasn't just personal ambition, right? Phantom islands could be used to back up territorial claims or confuse rival nations.
Right.
Maps have always been tools of power, and messing with them could have serious consequences in the real world.
Absolutely. Maps are never truly neutral. They show the perspectives, biases, and agendas of whoever made them, and phantom islands, with their uncertain existence and possible strategic value, could be easily manipulated.
So we've explored how phantom islands came to be, the different types, and their impact on culture and our understanding of the world. But what's the bigger picture? Why are we so drawn to these places that don't even exist? What is it about them that keeps fascinating us?
Yeah. I think it comes down to a few things. First, phantom islands represent that allure of the unknown, the unexplored parts of our world, and the possibility of something amazing existing beyond our current knowledge. They tap into that human curiosity, that desire for discovery that pushes us to explore.
It's that same spirit that drove early explorers to set sail on dangerous voyages,
Yeah.
to go to uncharted areas looking for new lands and their secrets. Phantom islands become almost like symbols of that adventurous spirit, that thirst for knowledge and new experiences.
They do. Second, phantom islands often embody our hopes and fears, our deepest anxieties and aspirations. They can be imagined as utopias, perfect hidden places that offer escape from the difficulties of life. Or they can be seen as dangerous, mysterious places full of mythical creatures or hostile forces, reflecting our fear of the unknown.
They become a sort of blank slate where we project our own desires and fears, like the Isle of Demons with its stories of supernatural beings.
All right.
It taps into that primal fear we have of what we don't understand. And then there's Hy-Brasil, hidden in mist, accessible only once every 7 years. It's almost like a lost paradise we long to reach.
Exactly. And finally, I think phantom islands speak to our need to make sense of the world around us,
Yeah.
to create order out of chaos, to fill in the gaps in our knowledge, even if those attempts are based on incomplete information or wishful thinking. They show our ongoing effort to understand our place in the universe.
They're like placeholders on the map of our understanding, waiting to be replaced with more accurate information as we learn more. The fact that some of these islands were on maps for centuries, even with growing evidence that they weren't real, speaks to how powerful belief can be and how hard it is to let go of established ideas.
It's really interesting. That interplay between fact and fiction, the known and the unknown, is what makes phantom islands so compelling. They make us question what we believe, acknowledge that we could be wrong, and stay open to the amazing things the world might still hold.
We've looked at all sides of phantom islands, where they came from, the types, their impact on culture, and the mysteries they represent. But what about those islands that haven't been totally explained or debunked? Are there still phantom islands out there waiting to be discovered or maybe rediscovered?
That's a question that keeps explorers, scientists, and anyone fascinated by our planet's mysteries thinking. Even though technology has come a long way and we can map the ocean floor in much greater detail, there are still huge areas that are unexplored.
And even with sonar and satellite images, the ocean can still surprise us. Underwater volcanoes can erupt, creating new islands or changing the ones that are already there. Earthquakes and landslides can move land masses around or make them disappear. And with climate change, rising sea levels and stronger storms are constantly reshaping coastlines.
So, while finding a big, completely new landmass is unlikely, finding
Hmm.
smaller islands, reefs, or seamounts that haven't been mapped or understood correctly is still possible. The ocean is vast and deep, and it keeps its secrets well.
And then there's the idea of islands that might have existed a long time ago but are now underwater, lost to time and the forces of nature. Could there be remnants of ancient civilizations, lost cities, or even whole ecosystems down there just waiting to be found?
Now, that's an exciting thought. The ocean is like a giant museum of history. Its depths hold countless secrets. Archaeologists and marine scientists are always finding new things, pushing the boundaries of what we know about our planet's past.
And the search for lost civilizations, especially those from myths and legends like Atlantis, that continues to capture people's imaginations and drive exploration. Whether those advanced societies really existed is still up for debate, but the possibility is enough to keep us looking.
It is. Even if we don't find Atlantis or other mythical cities, the search itself can lead to valuable discoveries about our planet's history, its geology, the life in its oceans. Exploration, driven by curiosity and a desire to understand our world, is almost never a waste of time.
So even though the days of finding huge, uncharted continents might be over, the exploration of our planet isn't finished. The ocean depths, with their hidden landscapes, mysterious creatures, and the potential for finding the past, they still call to us.
They do. And the stories of Phantom Islands, with their blend of fact and fiction, remind us that the world is still full of mysteries, waiting for those with the curiosity and determination to seek them out. They challenge us to keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop learning.
Well said. And on that note, as we finish our deep dive into Phantom Islands, we want to leave you with some final thoughts and a challenge. What do these vanished lands tell us about our own desire to explore, to chart the unknown, and to make sense of the world around us? We've been exploring Phantom Islands, how they appeared on maps, the different kinds, and their impact on exploration, literature, everything.
And as we wrap up, it's interesting to think about what these places that never really existed say about us, about how much we want to explore, to map the unknown, to understand our world.
It's pretty amazing that islands, sometimes based on weak evidence or even outright lies, could stay on maps for centuries.
Right.
And sometimes they even affected political decisions in exploration. Why were people so ready to believe?
You could just say it was human error or a lack of scientific thinking back then, but I think it goes deeper than that.
Yeah,
These islands weren't just places on a map, they were like reflections of our hopes, fears, and that need we have to make sense of things.
you're right. There were blank spots that we filled in with our imaginations. Our desires for adventure, for lost civilizations, for something more than the ordinary.
Even today, with all our technology and knowledge, that idea of a lost island, a hidden paradise, it still has this strong hold on us.
It's like that yearning for exploration, for the unknown. It's part of who we are. And Phantom Islands, they're this mix of reality and imagination. They give us a glimpse of that yearning.
Exactly. And even when those hopes are dashed, when the island turns out to be nothing, the search itself can be valuable. It makes us improve our methods, question our assumptions, and ultimately appreciate how complex the world really is.
So what's the takeaway from Phantom Islands? What do they teach us?
They teach us that the pursuit of knowledge never really ends.
Hmm.
It needs both curiosity and humility. We might never have all the answers, but the quest itself, the willingness to explore, to question, to be open to new possibilities, that's what matters.
That applies to more than just maps and geography, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
In our own lives, we run into our own Phantom Islands.
Mhm.
Beliefs, assumptions, ideas that haven't really been tested or challenged.
Exactly. Just like those early explorers, we have a choice. Stick with our old maps or embrace that spirit of exploration. Venture into the unknown and see where it leads.
So as we finish this deep dive, we'll leave you with a challenge. What are the Phantom Islands in your own life? What beliefs or assumptions might need a closer look? A bit of healthy skepticism,
Right.
a willingness to see things from a new angle.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, to challenge the way things are, to go on your own personal journeys of discovery. You never know what you might find.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of Phantom Islands. We hope it's made you more curious and inspired you to keep seeking knowledge wherever your own journeys take you.
Until next time, happy exploring.